everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsSaysStamp.com. Today I'm using a really cute ice cream stamp from Magnolia, and I've stamped it on some Simon Says Stamp watercolor paper in StazOn Jet Black ink. I'm going to be doing some distress watercoloring today with some distress markers and distress reinker. So I put down my craft sheet and I just sprayed some water. And now I'm taking the Tattered Rose Distress marker and I'm adding it to the outer edge of her face and her hands and her legs just to get a really nice wash of color over each of those areas so that I can add a little more color in a minute here. So I just took my aquash brush and there's actually no water in it. I'm just picking up the water from the craft sheet. And I just softened all those colors. And now I'm bringing in worn lipstick just on her cheeks. This is a really, really cool kind of pink color. And then it goes on a really rosy red pink. But as you kind of diffuse it with the water and your watercolor brush, it turns like a more vibrant pink. It's a really great color for cheeks and also if you just want to have a pink area on your image. So after I finished the worn lipstick, I took a little bit of Vintage Photo. And I'm using this to sort of shade things a little bit. I'm going around the outer edge of all of those areas again. And you'll notice I kind of flick off to the side. And that's because the paper is already wet in those areas. And sometimes the markers will soak up the water instead of letting the ink out of the tip. So you kind of have to coax that ink back to the tip of the marker so you can get it to work. So I just softened all those areas once again with my watercolor brush. And next I wanted to move on to a new area. So I completely dried those areas. When you're going to be changing colors like that, you want to make sure that you dry in between so that you don't have any bleeding into those areas. So now I'm using brushed corduroy and I'm using the reinker, and that's because I've discovered that the ink, the marker of this color can tend to look a tiny bit green. And since I have the reinker, I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and do a little reinker watercoloring. I've never done this before actually, and it's a really kind of a cool way to go about it. Just another way to get that distress ink on your project. So I watered that down quite a bit for this first part. And I painted all the colors of her hair. It turned out to be a really nice kind of golden brown color. I think you could use it very sparingly in its lightest form, and you could make her look blonde. But today I'm going to add just a little bit of the darker shade, and it's going to help her look a little bit more like a dark brown, kind of like a dirty blonde color. I really love how the color turned out. So I added all those dark areas, and then I came in with a little bit of walnut stain, the marker, just to add even just a little bit more shading on those areas that would be darkest on her hair. So I dried her hair completely, and then I cleaned up the area on the side, and I moved on to her dress. Now I'm using spun sugar. This is, it's not quite as pink as worn lipstick. It's a little bit more of a peachy pink. So you could, if you were going to do kind of a really peach skin tone on someone, you could actually use spun sugar very sparingly for their skin tone. I think that would be really pretty too. So I'm softening all that spun sugar, just getting that color moving a little bit. And then I'm going to go in with worn lipstick. I'm going to be using that to shade the darkest areas of her dress. And I'm sort of using all the little dots that are on the stamp image as the indication of where the shading would be. So I just kind of went over those areas and then softened it out. Worn lipstick is a great color. It moves really well. Some of the other colors don't move quite as well, but that one does. So I colored the ice cream with mustard seed, spice marmalade, and peeled paint. And then the little cupcake wrapper was Concord. Dusty Concord. And now her shoes are black soot. Just dried that completely. And then I went to cutting the image out. And this is a really kind of detailed image. And I'm going to show you exactly how I cut out those interior areas up by the cupcake. I actually just made a little slit, just right along the edge of her hairline. And cut out that interior piece. It's a little bit easier to do it that way when you're cutting watercolor paper because it is such a thicker paper. If it was a regular cardstock, you might be able to do that with an X-Acto knife. So I'm going around the outside edge with a black brush tip marker, and that just makes everything look perfect. And now I'm moving on to the card. I'm using some antique linen distress ink. And I'm going to be using a blending tool to bring that in on this card base that I've already embossed. I used the Cuttlebug Polka Dots embossing folder. And this distress ink is really going to bring out those dots. It's a completely white card. It's cut and folded out of some Nina Solar white. And it was a little bit hard to see all of those dots, especially on camera. In person, you can see them a little more. But on camera, it was really hard to see. And I wanted to warm that area up. So that's why I brought in the antique linen distress ink. Now I have some vellum, and I just punched that with a Fisker scallop sentiment punch. And then I glued on a little strip of some basil cardstock. The color is Candy Hearts. And I just glued that onto the vellum strip. I'm going to eventually put this onto the card. I'm going to be putting it on some foam adhesive and then straight down onto that area where the embossing ended. Now I have a die cut. This is from the Simon Says stamp Oh Happy Day die, and I just die cut the word happy because this is going to be a birthday card. So I just die cut the word happy and put some Tombow Mono multi glue on the bottom half of the word. And now I'm using the stamp set from Hero Arts. This is the It's Your Day stamp set. And I just took one of the smaller stamps that said Happy Birthday and I actually cut it apart. So it was just the word birthday. And I'm stamping it in Raspberry Jam Shadow Ink from Hero Arts. Just put that right below on that pink band of color. Now I'm adding foam adhesive, and I made sure to add that foam adhesive as a bridge across that area that I cut apart to get the interior piece. Put that down on the card. And then I rounded the corners with a 1/2 inch corner rounder. And I took a white gel pen and I did some dash lines along the top edge of that Candy Hearts area. And then coated all of the ice cream with some Stardust stickles. And that's the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.